Body shot? Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. UFC 266 is in the books, and dare I say, I think we had some legendary fights, man. We had some knockouts, we had some submissions, crazy comebacks, what we thought was crazy comebacks, and listen, man, the whole entire gambit, man. There's too much to talk about almost. So, I got to bring in my co-host, the Santa Fe Bomber, the New Mexico native. What's going on, brother? Hey, listen, AJ, man, I told you I was coming for you this week, and I nailed just the second time this entire year, man, a perfect 5-0. It was real chalky, so I will give you that, but we will say, man, you went contrarian, you took a risk, went 3-2 overall. I got the 5-0, but hey, man, I think we both in a really good spot coming up, man. How you living, brother?
I'm doing well, my brother. I'm doing well. Like you said, I took a couple risks on this next one. I kind of had to go with the heart and not the head, and sometimes that doesn't pay off, brother. But I'm living well other than that, man. How was your night in the live, man? Doing it big up there, man.
Yeah,
seeing
man.
it in person with your own eyes instead of on the TV. How was your experience, brother?
Listen, man, I don't want to have any recency bias, and it's very easy to have, but I do have to say, I feel like I witnessed one of the greatest featherweight title fights in fucking history, in UFC history right there, man. The comebacks, even though at the end of the day, you see 50-45s, 49-46 for Volkanovsky when he retains, and still, spoiler alert, folks. But listen, man, it was a very, very interesting fight. We were texting back and forth. Like you said, there was a lot of close moments in this matchup. However, Volk did run away with it. But listen, when that guillotine was locked in, when that triangle was locked up, man, I'll tell you, man, all the air in the arena just zapped out, man. We was all like, oh my God, what's about to happen? So I'll tell you, man, it was really, really fun. And just in a couple minutes, man, I'm going to give a couple more takeaways, you know what I'm saying, about just the experiences and why folks should definitely go and catch a fight if you have the opportunity to. The compounding thing with this one, man, this was International Fight Week, so it was the whole nine, man. The celebs was out, everything, man. It was really fun. Long story short, excuse me, man. It was a very, very memorable experience, and everybody got to go do it at least once in their life, man. But with that being said, before we get into things, folks, listen, AJ, man, your Vikes, another week coming up, man. Tough loss last outing. You representing, as always, man. My Raiders, we coming to play against the Dolphins this week, man. I know we rocking well in fantasy football, the whole nine, man. So outside of just, a couple wins, a couple losses, man, we out here getting it. We enjoying some sports, and I just want to give a great reminder, man. Look at this time right now, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years, when COVID first started and our sports were taken away from us and all that. We kind of back grooving in the motion, my man. You know what I mean? So just give me a quick takeaway real fast, AJ, on why sports are important and what do they do for our psyche, not only as Americans, but just as, people who love to see some great competitive action, man. How are you feeling that we back to a little bit of normalcy?
Man, I was actually thinking about this today when I was putting this shirt on, my man. I love the fact that it's sports season back again, bro. Like, just the fact, one, if you're playing sports, I think that's just a whole nother level. Like, everybody go out, when you're done listening to this podcast, go out there and go play some sports, man. You're going to feel great. You're going to, have a good attitude. Your body's going to be feeling nice. It's the whole nine. But other than that, just looking forward to it as a sports fan, it's nice because it gives you something, like I said, to look forward to actually enjoy. I was putting the shirt on. I was like, man, it's football time.
Mm-hmm.
We got the episode coming up. I'm excited to record that, but also I'm excited to watch some football. It's a rough start for the Vikes right now, but I know we're gonna get better. And even with that, I'm still excited to watch it, man. And it's I think that's something that's lacking, especially like you said, when things got taken away from us here in COVID season. It's finally sports season back, and people have something to be happy about, man, and look forward to. And I think that's very lacking in these day and times, especially. A lot of people got depression, anxiety, and all that stuff. But when you don't, when you have something to look forward to, it keeps you happy. It keeps that mind on track, man. Things are working well, and I was very excited. It's funny you brought that up, man, because I was literally thinking that as I was putting on the shirt. I was like, man, it's sports season, bro. It's football.
Man.
Like, let's go, man. I love it.
Exactly, man. So that's just the quick reminder, man, to be humble in, what we have in day-to-day life, man. Don't take advantage, or I would say don't take for granted these things, man. But enough of all of that nonsense, folks. Drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, man. Let's get into some fights, my man. So I'm going to get into a little bit of this recap and analysis, right, AJ? However, one thing that I do want to note before we talk about, you see this beautiful picture we have right here. I'm actually going to minimize that just for 1 second and just give a couple quick takeaways from the experience inside of the stadium and at the T-Mobile Arena over there watching UFC 266. First takeaway, folks, is we're obviously going to get into this stuff in just a couple more minutes. Nick Diaz fans, Diaz brothers in general, the whole entire collective of the Nick Diaz army, man, these fans travel. They travel well. They're almost like the tenacity and the ruthlessness of a Raider fan, with a little extra delusion on top of it, though. And the reason why I say this, folks, is because, listen, man, we noted on the pre-show that this might not have been the greatest matchup in the world. Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler, all that good stuff. Nonetheless, man, you had Nick Diaz getting big pops, man. As soon as you see the sight of a Nate Diaz, right, people are on their feet clapping, standing, zooming in on their phones, man, dying just to get a picture of these brothers, man. That's how famous, how, much of superstars these guys are, man. And seeing the outcome that we did see, Robbie Lawler got the job done, TKO round 3, kind of a no-moss situation for Nick Diaz. These fans, a lot of them, dipped out of the stadium, said, you know what, forget these 2 title fights coming up. Forget Valentina Shevchenko. Forget Ortega Volkanovski. I was only here to see Nick Diaz. And so that's the big takeaway from me, man, is that in person, you kind of get to see the delusion, the love, the emotions, everything riding high. And I guess that's a perfect segue into the next point, man. People, the fighters who say, listen, man, it's a lot of emotions, a lot of intensity when I walk in the cage. I need the fans there, all that good stuff, man. That emotion stuff is legitimately real. Like, you could feel it in the air. You can cut the tension with a knife. When Cynthia Calvillo walked out, I was mentioning this in the pre-show, AJ, right? When Cynthia Calvillo walked out, you could feel like all of the emotion, man. You almost wanted to shed a tear, man. She come out with the USA and the Mexico, rocking for la raza, man, comes out ready to go, get steamrolled by Jessica Andrade. That wasn't too great, right? But it was one of those things, man, where it was all like, man, she hasn't competed in a while. Back, fans, back to a little bit of normalcy. Let's fucking rock, man. So these are just a couple big takeaways, man. A couple other things there. The production is ridiculous, man, for the UFC. If you notice, AJ, so the main camera that you'll see the fighters, getting panned on, it's all smooth and buttery and all that. This whole entire time, I'm thinking, well, they got a couple dudes on the posts, with the cameras over their shoulders. That's not the angle you're seeing, dude. It's a camera on a crane, like hella high up in the sky, just moving around flawlessly and seamlessly, man. It's pretty incredible. Makes a little bit of a hindrance when you're actually there at the fights watching it, but nonetheless, man, it goes to show you what a machine the UFC in terms of their production for their video stuff, man, which is clearly why they're number one in the world, right, in terms of their production, in terms of the quality of the broadcast and all that good stuff. Obviously, partnering up with the ESPN helps, but listen, folks, the last thing that I got to say about this thing is that when you hear in the 3rd round of the Ortega-Volkanovski fight, when the tides were turning, the submissions were getting locked up and all of that, man, when you hear the vibrations and all that stuff, you could hear the booming of the mats and all that craziness, man. You could feel it in your chest, man. You got to go get that feeling. It is not the same thing on TV, man. So I definitely recommend go out, catch a fight, man. It's in terms of sports, AJ, right? Football, basketball, all that good stuff. There's nothing like watching a fight. I really, truly believe that, man. So, AJ, man, next time you out in Vegas, man, we catching a fight. You already know what time it is, brother. But with that being said, all aside, man, now let's get into some recap. So you already saw I popped up this picture, AJ, and what you see here, folks, is you see Alexander Usyk, man, defeats heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua to take 3 of his belts. I believe it's the IBO, the IBF, WBA, and WBO heavyweight championship belts, man. And I just have to say it, AJ, man, I know this is a MMA program, really a combat sports program in its totality, but Anthony Joshua was kind of those 3 kings, the Tyson Fury, the Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua. Usyk, he just supplanted that man. He surpassed him, and he says, no, I'm in the conversation now, pal. What does this mean for boxing? Because it feels like Anthony Joshua, the big draw out of the UK, man. You get surpassed like that, all those big money fights kind of go away. There is a rematch scheduled, but just give me a take on the picture in this situation at hand.
Well, it's crazy because it's the second time we've seen greatness get deshambled. We had I forgot the Mexican homie's name. Andy Ruiz. Thank you very much. We saw Ruiz come in and kind of pull off the miracle and then fall off again. So I'm wondering if Usyk, again, same thing, kind of come out of nowhere, or at least for me, because I wasn't really following the heavyweight scene so much, and take down Joshua. It shows that the 3 kings are kind of Yeah, up in the air, my man. Like they really, and in boxing, it's a whole thing where everybody wants to pay. Everybody's kind of ducking each other. Nobody really wants to fight. And for the longest time, we were trying to see Joshua versus Tyson or any of the matches kind of link up, man. And I don't think we're going to be able to see that anymore. At least it's not going to have the weight or the implicity that it did have before. But it's good to see. I know there's some shifty bell ringing at the end of it. Kind of there, there's a lot of comments saying that they were trying to get Joshua, get him out there so he can still maintain the dub, which I don't, you can't really doubt it, man. Boxing, they got the money in the pocket. So it's interesting to see, but for Usyk is good, man. It's nice to see that there's some refresh going into boxing because it definitely needs some of that. It needs to be able to still hold its weight, man. Boxing is still a craft. It's still an art. And it's good to see that it's still staying a little bit relevant because I know for a while there it was falling off. What you think?
Well, listen, man, I'm not going to fault you for not knowing about Alexander Usyk because he was not traditionally a heavyweight, man. He actually came up as a cruiserweight, right? So that's the weight class below, you know what I'm saying? So you got, I think it's like light heavy, cruiser, heavyweight, or, something in that order. But nonetheless, yeah, man, I've been following him for quite some time, and I'm not going to lie, I counted him out. I betted on Anthony Joshua, lost that one, man, big time, man. Joshua got dominated. It wasn't even really close, man. But I will say it's nice to see fresh blood in there. I do think that this takes a lot of steam off of the potential winner of Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury versus a potential Anthony Joshua bout. Maybe Usyk, just like I said, takes that spot, and but he's not really that big of a draw. We'll see what happens. But interesting night, going head to head, UFC and boxing and all that good stuff, man. Now let's get into some MMA action, man. I'm gonna bring up a couple of prelim photos, man, some big stuff, and this is one, man, that I know you're not gonna want to see, but I'm gonna bring it up anyways. Tyler Santos, man, with a face-crushing left hook on Roxanne, the Happy Warrior Modafferi, man. Watching that fight, it was kind of a snoozer. I'm not gonna lie to you. You know what I mean? A lot of top control by Tyler Santos. But look, Santos seems to be a force to be reckoned with at this point in her career, man. She's kind of steamrolling anyone that they put in front of her. She just took down a legitimate veteran. We already talked about you cannot stay in the top 10 in the flyweight division for this long and not be good. But what it comes down to ultimately, man, is I want you to comment on, do you think the days of gatekeeping for Roxanne Modafferi are over?
It seems like it, right? It seems like the Happy Warrior has really started to hit that pinnacle or not the pinnacle of her career, that point in her career where the rest of the competition is finally caught up and she's really no longer a gatekeeper, but she's more middle of the pack. Yeah, it really does seem like it.
Yeah, man. Not to mention, I believe she's 39 years old, not on the good side of the late 30s. So it's like, we'll see what happens here, man. I love the pre-fight antics, right? She came out in the Vegeta costume or whatever, you know what I mean? Trying to do some Super Saiyan, Dragon Ball Z, all that good stuff, man. But when those antics keep coming up, but you're not winning fights, then you got to start reconsidering, all right, what are we doing here? I will say, I believe that this was a short notice replacement, like Modafferi filled in short notice for Tyler Santos or something of that nature, or it could have been vice versa. But nonetheless, man, Tyler Santos looking very, very mean. This next one, AJ, this is history right here. Matthew Semelsberger becomes the second fighter in UFC history to notch 2 knockouts in under 20 seconds. I don't know who the first one, but I would imagine it's Francis Ngannou. The point here...
Rumble Johnson, I'm pretty sure.
Is it Rumble Johnson? That even makes more sense.
Pretty sure.
That makes more sense right there. But the point here is that Matthew Semelsberger against Jason Witt, I think 2 fights ago, he had a 16-second one-punch knockout. He bested himself in this one, man, with a 15-second one-punch knockout, man. And he said, he's like, listen, man, I'm training for war, but I'll take these quick knockouts, man. All I got to hit him with is with this beautiful right hand, man, and they're going to fucking sleep. So I will say Matthew Semelsberger, he was a huge -500 favorite in this one, and he moves to 9-3 in his MMA career. Just give me your take on this one, man. After this right hook, he just followed up with a hammer fist, and they called it quits after that, man. Give me your take.
Man, this could be a gift or a curse for Semelsberger. You know, like the intro says, man, you fall in love with this right hand, you know what it can do.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that he's training for war, man, and I love that as Semelsberger, and that's why I really like this dude as a fighter. He's in it for the grind, and he's a wrestler to start, but he's got that pop and he's got that power. What they didn't point out in the when they were breaking it down on the program, all the stuff, they were showing how he fainted. He fainted to the body and the hands started going out. And, they teach you when you're striking, you do not reach for any of those combos because it leaves your chin open and exposed. And that's exactly what his opponent did. And so he saw that. He fainted to the body and then cracked him with a nice right hand. But he didn't load up, man. What they didn't show is that he didn't load up. He literally threw it right from where the guard was. Perfect shot, beautiful power. Woo, man, this one I was pretty excited to watch, man. I was happy because the hammer fist at the end, super necessary, obviously, but probably, the ref could have stepped in a little bit sooner. But yeah, he had him out, man, dead to rights. It was a good fight, man. It was a good fight. What was you think?
It was a good fight while it lasted, right? All 15 seconds of that fight, man. I will say that if fans don't know who Semi the Jedi is, man, you figuring it out, man. You're seeing it in real time, live and in person. You know what I'm saying? Not in person, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? Matthew Semmelsberger is a problem, bro. I'll just say that power is ridiculous. He's coming, he's game, and I just want to see him in, let's go 3 rounds because he lost his last fight, prior to this one, man, very decisively, I'm pretty sure as well. So, listen, I just love to see the success of these young fighters, these prospects that are kind of building their way up, man. And you're not going to be on the bottom of them prelims for long. You keep it up with that type of action, man. So let's move on to the next one, man. This is just listen, the cost of victory right here, man. And believe it or not, this was just one knee. This is one knee. I mean, Jairzinho Rozenstruik did not land too many shots on Curtis Blaydes throughout the duration of this fight. He did land a perfectly timed knee to the face of Curtis Blaydes, which he ate miraculously. And he got the dub, but that eye is looking pretty rough, man. My question to you is just give me your take on that cost of victory right there, man. You never really want to go out like this. You want to go out unscathed like a Valentina Shevchenko. But, I mean, he's probably going to be sore for a little bit at home. What you think?
Whew, there's a lot of ice packs coming, man. Yeah, no, and this to me shows the power of heavyweights, bro. You land one good knee, and it doesn't even need to be the best place knee, He hit him solid in the cheek, and that thing flares up right away. But also, like what happened to Blaydes in his last fight against Lewis, perfect timing. He just got caught. There's nothing really about that. The power of the heavyweights can absolutely put you to sleep. And if it doesn't put you to sleep, it's going to give you about a softball size hematoma on your face, man.
Absolutely. It makes me wonder if it's broken orbital or what he's got going on right there. But I will say, man, this is the number 4 guy in the heavyweight division. I told you, he's the odd man out in the top 3. Jairzinho Rozenstruik clearly he's got to, get pushed back a little bit more after this loss because he can't be one-dimensional. He can't just be a kickboxer. But I will say, obviously, we're going to talk about this more in a second, man. Curtis Blaydes, man, he says he wants a rematch with Francis Ngannou or he wants Stipe or John Jones, man. But he already got knocked out twice by Ngannou. I don't know if instead of 1 eye like that, it might be 2 if he fights Ngannou again, man. You never know. But all right, man, this next photo that I got right here, and we only got a couple of more before we move on to the actual recap. But this is just a picture of Ortega versus Holloway and Ortega versus Volkanovski, man. And I will say that the man has shown that he puts on for la raza, man. He puts on, he's got the heart of a Mexican warrior. But that's not always the greatest thing that you want to have in combat sports, especially, man, when you're taking what a lot of people are saying and they're reacting. This is recency bias once again. But the man might have substantial levels of, Darren Elkin style CTE as the years go on if you keep up with the performances like this, man. This is a man who was formerly undefeated. Both losses have come in brutal fashion, basically, man, where he's taken a lot of damage. What do you think about this, AJ?
Man, the heart is there, but the head wasn't in this fight, and it was a little not sad to see, but worrisome. I think Uncle Chael said it best. He says, it's good to be tough, and it's great. It's a great aspect for a fighter until you're reminding him who you are and reminding him who he is and feeding him applesauce every day because CTE is a real deal issue. And the head movement for Brian Ortega did get a little bit better, but yeah, he was getting absolutely clobbered on.
Yeah, I agree, man. A lot of it came via the ground and pound, you know what I mean? Where he was basically just trying to survive, out wobbly. And like I said, the heart is what we adore. That's what makes you a fan for life. But once again, look at Nick Diaz's performance. Look at all of his interviews leading up to the fight, man. It's kind of what we were just saying. I'm like, man, it does not look good. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just from a visual aspect, like this is not what I want to hear from a man who's about to go and step in the cage and put his life on the line, But I will say once again, man, the big takeaway from this is looking at the positive and not the negative, man. The man has a warrior spirit, true Bushido right there. You feel me? So shout out to Brian Ortega, shout out to T-City, man. Came this close, bro. Came this close, but we'll talk about it a little bit more in a second. Now, this is the big one that is a follow-up from this next picture, AJ, and there was a little bit of disrespect leading up to this fight, man. When I was at the press conferences, I'm sure everybody watched it, right? Volkanovski, he went off a little bit. Hey, man, you popped, you know, I don't get down with that, man. You don't deserve to be here, X, Y, and Z. You're unprofessional, yada, yada, yada. He then, you know, revoked some of that stuff after the fight, saying like, hey, I said some crazy shit, man. And like, I take some of that back because you made me look stupid for some of the things that I said. But this is what you want to see at the end of any rivalry, whether it's a friendly rivalry, whether it's a truly competitive rivalry, is respect right there, man. You shake hands, old school AJ. I know you agree with me on this. It's not like how it was once upon a time, man, where you got an issue, you scrap it out, and then you shake hands and be like, all right, bro, it's squashed. It's all good. Next time I see you, it's not, I'm going to fight you again on site. It's, listen, man, it's all good. We handled our business like men. Tell me what you think about this, AJ.
I love that, man. Like that's one thing I was talking to my pops about this back in the, you know, a couple weeks ago, where like the old school style of living, like where, you know, you handle your business like a man. I can't tell you how many different fights I've gone into where me and those guys are friends after.
Yeah,
It's just how it goes. You know, sometimes there's beef that needs to get handled. You squash it out, and then it's squashed. It's done.
Exactly.
That's where it lies. And that's what I was saying. I was talking to my pops where that just doesn't happen anymore, and it's sad to see. But it's good to see that it's still alive in the cage. Because man, you can talk all the shit you want in the beginning. By all means, you're in there to handle it and answer for the words you've said. But at the end, it's good to see that they're able to shake hands a little bit and do that, man. I think that's the appropriate way to handle it, and I think that's the best way to be a fighter, man. Be a warrior in there and actually be, true to your word and be a man about it.
Exactly, man. I agree absolutely, wholeheartedly, and I will say even to add on top of that, man, Volkanovski, I think it was Volkanovski or Ortega, one of them said, they're like, listen, man, in an alternate timeline, man, I think that we could be pals grabbing a beer and just kicking it, chopping it up, man. You know what I mean? So it's like leaving that there too, saying competitively, yes, fuck you, this is a rivalry. I'm trying to beat your ass. However, when the fight's all said and done, hey, you were the better man tonight, right? Let's not forget what Ortega said in the press conference. He says, hey, man, fuck the belt. I'm coming for your head. He walked out to the Purge music, you feel me, with the mask on and the whole nine, man. The Purge, like, I'm gonna fucking kill this man. So, you know, all that aside, man, I just love to see this. This is the greatest example one can ask, and this is why I do believe that MMA, UFC, all that good stuff is a family-friendly and a child-friendly sport because they're putting on a very great example of how to act, win or lose, man. So I'll take that out there, man. And the last photo that I have on this one, AJ, this is a little personal to me personally. Actually, I didn't even put up let me see if I can add it right now. So I'm going to put up this one first. I told you I went 5-0 on this one, man. Hit the perfect parlay right there. You know, I just wanted to add that. I know it's hard to see on there right now. You know what I mean? This is a grassroots program too, man. So I threw $30 on a 5-fight parlay, won $118. Shout out, man. This is why you listen to our program. Come on, this is what we're talking about. It's because we got the insight and the information to win you some green. I'm not just talking out my ass. I'm showing you right here. But this is the other one right here, AJ, that made me a little sad. I'm going to try to add it right now. It's probably going to be a little big, so let me see. Yeah, let me bring that down. So you're going to see. You see, I have a bet. It was a $20 bet, man. And this is always the better's remorse, right? Where you're like, fuck, I should have bet more. But this is basically the easiest bet that I had all night long, AJ. And this is the delusion of the Nick Diaz fans that I wasn't understanding. And even the odds makers. I say, how is it Robbie Lawler by TKO or DQ at plus 240? Like, tell me how this makes sense. Am I crazy, or are people just that fucking deluded about Nick Diaz at 38 years old? I don't understand it. Easiest $48 that I've ever fucking made in my life, man. It was very sad to see, especially being there in person, watching Nick Diaz basically be like, no more, bro. I'm done. My nose hurts. Let's not do this anymore. So I just will say, folks, that's why you don't buy into the hype sometimes, man. I get it. We love the guy. I get it. I totally do. I love the guy. I grew up watching him. I'm from the 209. But if we're talking about making money, that is a unemotional, unbiased thing that we're talking about. And for that reason, tune into the Bloody Water Podcast because we got you guys, man. So, all right, AJ, man. Folks, drop a like, subscribe, all the good stuff. You already know what time it is. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts at. Bloody Water Podcast on Instagram, Bloody Water Pod on Twitter. And, drop comments, all the good stuff. We love interacting with you guys. I think we just hit 210 subscribers, man. So we keep growing slowly but surely. Organic growth. That is what it's about. You dig. All right, AJ, let's get into actual fights, man. Jessica Andrade, man. Bate Estaca. She's back in the win column. TKO round 1 over Cynthia Calvillo, man. And the thing that we predicted in the pre-fight show basically came to fruition wholeheartedly right there, man. We said Calvillo is a little too accepting of being on the back foot, and Andrade, from the beginning of the fight, put her on the back foot, kept her there, big hooks, got the job done, man. What I want to know, not about Andrade, man, what does this tell you about Cynthia Calvillo, who has had back-to-back pretty disappointing performances? What does this tell you?
Man, it's an interesting question because a lot does tell you from her losses. You know, she really is accepting of the position, and sometimes being on the back foot. If you're a counter striker, it's not the worst place to be, especially if you have that head movement, that foot movement that can make the other striker miss and then counter on their misses. It just didn't look that way, man. And Cynthia Calvillo, she was really not scared, but didn't handle the pressure well. If there's a better word out there that I'm trying to find and I can't find it, but she looked a little accepting of what was going on and didn't necessarily look like she was, I don't know, excited to be there. That's not the exact way I'm trying to phrase it, but she really did have that like air taken out of her, I guess is the best way I'm trying to put it. She kind of felt the pressure of Andrade, and then it was like, all right, yeah, this is what's going on from then on, man. What do you think? What was your view on the fight?
Well, let me ask you real quick. Were you thinking maybe that she came out tentative or that she came out submissive, something like that, right?
Yeah, tentative. Tentative is a good word for it because she really didn't look like she saw her moments and wasn't able to capitalize on it. She was maybe seeing them, but just didn't have the necessary go to actually get it done.
Yeah, I agree with you right there, man. And the other part too that was kind of eye-opening is that after the fight, Cynthia Calvillo was all like, hey, it was always a dream and an honor to share the cage with you, Jessica Andrade. So I wonder if there's any of that starstruck nature in there, because right after she just got the brakes beaten off of her and stopped, she immediately hugged Andrade and was, you know what I mean, they had that embrace, which is like totally cool and all that, don't get me wrong. But then there's another element of the psyche of a fighter who says, get the fuck away from me, you just beat my ass, like I don't want, you know what I mean, don't embrace me, none of that stuff, right? And then you see Andrade picked up Calvillo, and then Calvillo picked up Andrade after the fight. I don't know if they showed that on the camera or whatnot, but it was a little weird because you'll hear a lot of fighters say, hey, after you knock me out, please don't fucking lift me up. Like that's even more embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? You just sunned me, basically. You just, you know, that anyways. So yeah, man, I think Calvillo, man, I don't know what's going on here, man. You know, she was working the jab to the body, but basically all she could do was strike defensively because she wasn't able to initiate the grappling, which is basically what we were saying. Like, this is the key to victory for Cynthia Calvillo. Now, I think that all that hype, man, that we was talking about, that Dana White gave her, where she was going to be a future champion, all that stuff, man, it's just like going all out the window. And don't get me wrong, Cynthia Calvillo is a hell of a fighter, man. She's a very, very great contender, in my opinion. I think she's legitimately she has the capacity to be great. I think it's about showing up come fight night. Jessica Andrade is a tough outing, though, AJ. I think we know this, right? And to see how Valentina made easy work of Andrade just goes to show how good Valentina is. So at this point right here, AJ, Jessica Andrade is her second win since moving up to flyweight. 4 of her last 5 wins have come via stoppage, knockout specifically. So let's flip it to Jessica Andrade, who says that she wants to fight the winner of Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas next, which then means moving back down to 115. Where do you think her future lies, AJ? At 115 or at 125?
Man, that's a good question. I would probably say 115. At least there's a less dominant champ at 115.
Yeah,
as
true.
much as I love Thug Rose, you know, she's beatable. Whereas it seems like Shevchenko is absolutely unbeatable,
Yeah.
and she could be fighting men, bro. She's an absolute killer out there. So I would probably say 115 if Jessica Andrade is smart. She's actually, she's got that small package, but she hits like a damn freight train. So I think it'd be good for her to go back down. But Thug Rose is a hard match too. So is Weili Zhang. So was her, man. So if I was her coach, I'd probably say let's drop down to 115 unless we want to come, do some real dedicated time to some wrestling, fighting, different probably you need to start training with like legitimate men strikers and men who are able to get it done on the wrestling mat, because it's going to be a hard road to toll if you're fighting Shevchenko, man.
I agree, and that's what's interesting, right, is that I think Jessica Andrade could stand very well against the majority of the top 10, top 5 in the flyweight division. It's just the champ where it's like, all right, you really want to fight Shevchenko again? Like, really? Probably not, right? So that's just even telling, man. We're just talking about, this is just the greatness of Valentina Shevchenko on display right here. But I will say that Jessica Andrade going back down to 115, I think would be a little bit better too, in a way. And this is what I mean by that. If she's coming up to 125 and she's just knocking people the fuck out, you know what I mean? Not like knocking them out, but she's stopping Calvillo, right? She hit Chukagian with the body shot, man, had her in agony, right? Take that power back down to 115, or is it a little less power because you're depleting yourself a little bit more? Are you more of a submission artist at 115 as opposed to a knockout artist? I don't know. I think the future is bright for Jessica Andrade, man. She's still in her 20s, man. She's young. I believe she's in her 20s anyways. And the point that I have here is that, listen, it's just like that goes to show how good the top three are in both respective divisions, man. Because Jessica Andrade, man, she's absolutely no slouch. She proved it tonight, man. So let's move on to the next one, man, because that was a very big win by Andrade. But once again, not too crazy. Now, I'm going to post up a picture. Or actually, just kidding, I'm not. Curtis Blaydes versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik, man. Curtis Blaydes get the big dump. I'm going to be honest with you, AJ, man. Fans were trying to boo Curtis Blaydes out the goddamn building for this fight, man. People hated this fight. People were literally walking out. I'm not going to lie to you. I went to go take a piss during the fight, man. I was all like, all right, man, this one's a little bit of a snoozer. People in the bathroom hella mad, like, oh, man, this fight's boring as fuck, man. Like, fuck this shit. You know what I mean? The casual fans were blood and guts fans and all that good stuff. But I will say it was really interesting seeing that kind of battle, that ebb and the flow for Curtis Blaydes, saying like, I know I need to get the takedown. That's the entire plan here. How am I going to do that without getting uppercutted into oblivion, without catching a major knee? And he did catch the knee, but he ate it and he still went for the takedown and all that. We need to talk about Jairzinho Rozenstruik though, AJ. Where is this man's future in the heavyweight division, knowing that versus Ngannou got steamrolled? That's okay. Curtis did. Everyone's getting steamrolled by Ngannou, basically. So that's basically, you know, free pass right there on the bingo square. But for Rozenstruik, being a great kickboxer is only going to take you so far. The top three is not going to allow you to just be a kickboxer and get victory. Stipe could wrestle, Ngannou can wrestle, John Jones can wrestle. You can't really deal with that just being a kickboxer. Seems like he's just, like we mentioned on the pre-show too, man, the stats don't lie. It's like if he's not knocking you out, he's really not winning. So another decision loss for the man. Where do we go with Jairzinho Rozenstruik?
I think he's on that Derrick Lewis kind of path, man, where he's not necessarily top tier until he is able to round out the rest of his game. It's hard though, man. Being in the top 10, you're an absolute savage of a fighter. You know, you're a killer out there, but you just don't have the necessary skill set to get you to the upper echelon. You know, the threes, the twos, the champ. But where does Jairzinho Rozenstruik go from here? I think it's just to AKA, brother. I think he goes to AKA, gets some wrestling on with DC, and really starts to learn the craft of the ground game. You know, coming from someone with a striking background like me, it sucks to wrestle. I hate it. I fucking hate wrestling. And anytime that you get a wrestler and they're just constantly trying to put you on your back, it sucks. It's absolutely horrible. But I think that's where the craft really needs to lie for Jairzinho Rozenstruik, where he needs to like, this sucks, but this is what I got to do to actually be good. And I need to get this done. And I need to actually fully commit to the wrestling because I know I can strike. And he has the bang. He can put the combos together. You know, the kickboxing talent is there for sure for Jairzinho Rozenstruik, for Biggie Boy. It's just finishing out and really getting to that next level of competition. Because like, Joe Rogan says, like everybody says, there's levels to this game. Yeah. And right now he's stuck at about that top, but not the top tier. You know what I'm saying?
Which isn't necessarily a terrible place to be. Don't get us wrong, right? You know what I mean? It's like you're a top 10 heavyweight. Like you're legit. You are arguably an expert at your craft if you're a top 10 in the UFC. But it's just not going to be good enough to get into that, crack that top 3, top 4. You know, Curtis Blaydes, I mean, let's be honest, man. His 3 losses have come to who? Derrick Lewis and Ngannou twice. So it's like, with that being said, Curtis Blaydes is not a slouch and he should not be knocked. Like, I don't think Jairzinho Rozenstruik should go back crazy because he lost to Curtis Blaydes. He's beating everybody else in the heavyweight division. I think Curtis Blaydes is just earning back his respect that he lost after the Derrick Lewis knockout, man. But, I mean, the wrestling is effective, man. He says he's going to do it. He tells you he's going to do it, and he does it. And he even said it, right? He was all like, listen, man, I could tell y'all I'm predicting a knockout, but you know what my game plan is. He knows what my game plan is. What's crazy to me is that he's just able to implement it against basically everybody except Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou, man. So it'll be interesting to see where both of these fighters go because Curtis Blaydes, he wants one of the top 3, so he's got to play the waiting game for a little bit, in my opinion, unless he fights down. But this is his 4th win in his last 5, or I guess 4 of his last 5 wins have been against ranked opponents, which is really telling to me because you're fighting legit people. And it's his 5th career decision victory for Curtis Blaydes. The question that I have before we get out of this matchup and move on to the next one, AJ, is do you think that Curtis Blaydes will ever be a draw with his fight style? Constant wrestling, constant pressure. What do you think?
Oof. Yes, but not to the majority of fan base, if that makes sense. So, like, when you said it best, the casual fans are in there like, this fight fucking sucks. Yeah. Like, Yeah, a lot of people. And what blows my mind is the majority. And we do this day in and day out. We're constantly looking at film. We're always reviewing tape. We know the fighters coming up. We know how the fight game goes. But when you talk to, like, I was talking to a couple of my employee or my coworkers at the job, and they're still like bringing up Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
And like they're like that she's the most dominant female fighter ever. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool, man. This is what you guys know. Word. But like that. I feel like that's the majority of people. So they're always going to be thinking about those blood and guts fighters. So it's going to be hard to be a big pay-per-view draw, a Conor McGregor draw, if you will. But Curtis Blaydes, if he's able to get the wrestling going and then get the ground and pound and really focus on finishing his opponents instead of just being I'm gonna be crushing on Derek Brunson for years, brother. But being like a Derek Brunson and just humping your way to victory, if you're able to avoid that and actually put some blood on the canvas, then I think you'll be at least a bigger draw to a lot more people that just aren't the casual fans. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely, man. This just gives me, it's like a little reminiscent of like the Randy Couture days, man, because this is Randy Couture style. It's just domination, wrestle, stay on top. And a lot of people now regard Randy Couture as one of the greatest to do it. But during the time, I feel like there was a lot of the stigma of, oh, he's a boring champion. Same thing for GSP. GSP got a lot of flack. Like, oh, he's boring. Why doesn't he just go and knock him out? Yeah, why is he wrestling? Why is he doing this? You know what I mean? So in hindsight, we look back and we love it. But during the time, you often see a lot of these fighters aren't as loved as you'd like to believe. Like Muhammad Ali, for an example, man, he was very, very, how would you say, polarizing, right? During his time as a fighter. Now we all love him. Now he's the greatest and all that good stuff. But he was calling himself the greatest before anybody else was, so you got to have that self-belief like we always talk about, right? I will say shout out to the Mayweather camp, because back to what you're talking about for, kind of like how casuals will say, hey, and, no disrespect when we say casuals, man. It's okay. I'm a casual fan in a lot of different sports. I just happen to be really into combat sports, particularly MMA. But I will say, I think it was Roger Mayweather. It was one of them, but he was like, most people don't know shit about boxing, right? Like that's like one of his popular lines. And I'd like to say most people don't know shit about MMA or combat sports in general, man, truly. A lot of the fans, you know what I mean? So what was hilarious, AJ, and listen, I'll just get out of this huge win. Shout out Curtis Blaydes, man, back on in the win column where you need to be. But I want to say this one more thing about being at T-Mobile, man. It's the funniest thing, because I had a couple people sitting behind me, and everyone's talking, you could hear everyone speaking and whatnot. And I had this dude who was with a couple ladies, right? So he was kind of teaching them. They were asking a bunch of very fundamental questions about the fight game, which is totally understandable. Shout out, cool. I'm glad you're teaching people. But when you hear somebody teaching somebody who doesn't know anything about the sport, and you're like, God damn, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's hilarious because they're very confident, right? They're saying very stupid shit very confidently. And so there was one point where Curtis Blaydes was kind of posturing up on Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and he was looking to just smash him. And he was like, oh, he's going for the armbar. He's going for the armbar. Watch him. And I'm just looking. I'm just like, are we watching the same thing, bro? I was like, Curtis Blaydes going for an armbar? I was like, okay. Sure, you know what I'm saying? I'll let you get your joints off, right? But it's just funny, man, because I also say people who, one of my favorite lines of all time, man, is you sound smart to a dumb person. Like, when you actually know what the fuck is going on and you hear someone flapping their fucking gums and you're just like, bro, you're full of nonsense, it's just hilarious. So I will say there's a lot of those people who, just because you're the only one in your friend group who knows anything about MMA, you immediately consider yourself the expert, right? So you're like, oh, well, I'll tell you this, that, and the other. I just will say, ultimately, most people don't know shit about MMA. I'm going to leave it at that. All right, AJ. This next photo that I got right here, I didn't want to see it. You didn't want to see it. But I'm going to put it up. Did you ever anticipate, okay, let me ask this. Let me rephrase this entire question that I have right here. What would have been better in your eyes, AJ? Nick Diaz keeping his mystique and just not fighting ever again and just staying out of the limelight, doing his thing, enjoying retirement, all that good stuff, or coming back, getting TKO'd for the third time in his entire career, losing a rematch that took place 17 years ago against Robbie Lawler, who has been way more active, fighting way, in terms of training and all that stuff. He's at Sanford MMA. His main training partner, like I said, is Jason Jackson. He's competing with the young guns. And it was a good show while it lasted, man. But to just sit down with probably a broken nose and just be like, all right, bro, I'm done. That was a terrible look. It was the antithesis of the Diaz style. And I think that is just the trademark of I'm 38 years old, man, and my heart's really not in this. I didn't want to get in the cage in the first place. I just got people around me who won't let me stop fighting. What would have been better?
It's I think the best situation of all of it would have been him keeping his mystique regardless. If he would have went in there and gotten TKO, gotten his nose busted up like he did, even the no mas at the end, yeah. If he would have went in there flipping people off, talking shit, staying in that mystique, that would have been the best. As long as he kept the persona, you play. If you're the heel, you got to play the heel. You got to stay true to it, and you got to. I forget the word that they always say. It's like when you bring it out. You bring the persona out. I think that should have been the mindset going in. But personally, I think of what happened, of the two situation, of the juxtaposition of either staying, the coach Nick Diaz, the badass, the mystique that's out there, are coming in showing 38-year-old humbled Nick Diaz. I mean, you should have just stayed out of the cage. And what really did it for me, we were texting back and forth at the beginning. They showed this interview that Nick Diaz had about, he was just Ali mode, man. And respect to one of the greatest to ever do it. But when you're mumbling words and you can't really, and even on this show, sometimes, we struggle with words and we struggle with getting the right concept out there. It's because you're thinking, and it's good to see that Nick Diaz is out there thinking, but it was just slow. It was hard to see. But what really did it for me was when they were showing that interview, it's like, oh, okay, that was a little sad. But then they showed him when his fighter Maximov. Maximov was fighting, and he looked in it, man. He looked engaged. He was sitting there in the crowd, like happy, and you could see the exuberance really start to come out. And that's when I was like, man, this dude doesn't want to be in the cage at all. He wants to be on the outside looking in and enjoying his fighters. He was even wearing the homie shirt, man. That's to me, that showed where Nick Diaz where his heart lied and where he really wanted to be. And it was sad to see the rest of it go on, because it really didn't ruin a great fighter for me, but it made me realize, the longevity of us all is very, very short in this game, man.
Absolutely. So I guess the next question that I have for you right here, man, is like in real time. I just want a quick synopsis in real time of what were you thinking when you saw the fight actually play out? When you see Nick Diaz say, I'm going to put my back against the cage. Very uncharacteristic of what a Diaz fight is. He's the pressure guy. He wants to move forward. He wants to do that. He wants to do the overwhelming volume, right? He had some good shots, man. He's hitting Robert with a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? A lot of touching, glancing shots. But what was just rolling through your mind? I know there was a lot of excitement. It's like, oh, okay, it's the Diaz fight. And then you're just seeing pressure, wilting. And that was it. What was your takeaway?
It was rough because at the start of it, when he was just looking in the cage, I could tell he didn't want to be there. We've all seen it. We've all been there where you're looking at it, you're like, I don't want to walk in that. I don't want to fight that guy. Like, we've all been there. Trust me. So it was the energy was down. I wasn't really digging it. But if I was just looking at just the punches and the strikes, he was looking pretty good. He was looking pretty good, man. The head movement wasn't there. The foot movement wasn't there, but those never have really been there. He's always been about just going and just tapping you up, and he's down to get hit. But the punches and strikes, I think he landed more and he attempted more strikes than Robbie Lawler. It's just the power and the pressure was there for Robbie. And when you're the pressure fighter like Nick Diaz is and you're getting put on, it's hard, man. It's a hard one.
Yeah, man. I will say when I was watching it, it just looked like the shots were labored coming from Diaz, man. Like, he threw out some kicks that I was just like, okay, bro. You look like you still warming up. Like, you just got into the dojo. You ain't even stretched yet. You feel me? Like, there was a couple of those shots. I will say it was a more valiant effort than I expected. I thought that Lawler was just going to steamroll him, to be honest, after, kind of seeing the peripherals of the Diaz, walking up and all of that good stuff. But Lawler got touched up, man. He definitely got touched up, but he also put himself in the fire. And he says he was all like, my game plan was to smother Nick Diaz and to not let him get those long strikes off, man. Not let him fight his fight. He has to fight my fight. And he got the job done, man. The real question at the end of the day here is that we already know the fight shouldn't have took place, all the good stuff, yada, yada, yada. We've been harping on that for a while now. Do you think do you think he quit? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it seems like very, like, clearly, like, all right, man, he was just like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm done. Fuck this. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he wouldn't have maybe, if he didn't get maybe a broken nose or whatever, because he was holding his nose after the fight. So if maybe that didn't happen, maybe he would have just kept the fight going. Like, I don't know. What do you think caused that? Do you think it was literally that breaking point? Do you think Nick Diaz got broken in that fight?
The word quit, I've been trying to not use that word because I don't think it was a quit. I don't think he said, like, I don't think in his heart he had more to give. Mm-hmm. And then that's like, if you have more to give and then you say, fuck it, I'm not doing this. That's a quit. Like, you still have some in the tank. I think he was just done. I think he knew that if you're losing the fight for 3 rounds and you still have another 2 to go and you don't have anything to give and you're just going to walk out there and keep getting your nose. If you've ever had your nose busted, first off, you know how bad this feels. You can't see shit. You can't breathe. Your mouth's open. Now you're going to get knocked out because your jaw is not, not clenched up. I don't think it was a quit though. It was more, that was probably the smartest move Nick Diaz has ever had, where he's just like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah. And you know what he said after was very telling. He was like, listen, man, it sucked because, he's still trying to like kind of defend himself and all that stuff. I was like, you don't got to defend yourself, bro. We already know. It's all love. The fans love you, all that stuff. But he did say, he was all like, listen, man, I started bleeding and I just didn't want to make too big of a mess. So I just said, all right, that's it. That was literally his justification. So it's like, it makes you think that Nick Diaz is now the thinking man, which is good because as you get older, you get wiser and you start thinking more. You're less reckless. You know what I mean? So I just hope, I don't want to see him in the cage again, man. When Robbie Lawler was asked, do you think Nick Diaz should fight? He was like, listen, man, I'm not here to solve anyone's problems. That's his issue, not mine. So he does whatever he wants to do. So listen, man, shout out to the great legendary career of Nick Diaz. Shout out to the original bad boy. Maybe not because Tito, right? Tito, or bad boy, Huntington Beach, all that good stuff. But shout out to Nick Diaz, man. You inspired a lot of people. And I'm telling you, man, he had the biggest fan base out of the entire, all the fighters on the roster at UFC 266. So big win for Robbie Lawler, though, man. We'll see where he goes in the matchmaking. All right, AJ. I wanted to just post up this photo because, listen, man, Lauren Murphy in the press conference, all she was talking about was, hey, she ain't fought nobody like me. Shevchenko ain't fought nobody like me. Like, I'm big, I'm strong, I'm tough. She'd never been knocked out. She'd never been submitted. Well, she got TKO'd, man, and it was ugly. And I'll tell you, AJ, man, this is another one of these situations where I felt the type of way, man, because people were trying to boo Valentina out the building too, man. They thought this was a boring fight. I thought partly because Lauren Murphy wasn't willing to engage. It seemed like she didn't want to trade. Shevchenko was just too sharp, too quick, too accurate, every time. And Shevchenko said it herself. She was like, listen, I expected more pressure. I thought it was a trap that she was going to lull me to sleep in the first round, then come heavy in the second. She just didn't want to give that pressure, so I decided, okay, I'll come forward. And it was like the moment, AJ, that she had Murphy hurt, she went in for the kill. She smelled blood, went in for the kill, TKO'd her that round 4, championship round, shows what champions are made of. My question to you on this one, man, is this is symbolic of this is the greatest to do it in the women's flyweight division, man. This is 6 straight title defenses, and now she moves into legendary territory, man. She joins 2 other fighters in UFC women's history with at least 6 title defenses in her UFC tenure with Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey, man. So Valentina Shevchenko legitimately has reached probably Hall of Fame status this early in her career. What does this photo mean to you, AJ, and just how impactful was this win for you?
Man, it was super impactful for this one. It might have been kind of a boring fight to start off, but it was dominant as hell. It's dominant when you're striking an opponent like you're hitting a heavy bag. Yeah. You have no regard for whatever they're going to throw back at you. You know that heavy bag ain't going to swing back. And if it does, you're just going to crack it again. And that's exactly what Valentina Shevchenko was doing to Lauren Murphy, man. She was throwing a jab, cross, and then the leg kick combo. Just bat, bat, bat. Yep. Bat, bat, bat. Like literally, like she was hitting a heavy bag out there. It was impressive, and it was very telling to see the demeanor of Lauren Murphy go from I'm gonna do this, to maybe I'm not gonna do this. And it was really just put on for Shevchenko, and it was exactly what I was expecting to see, man. A very dominant win. Although credit to Lauren Murphy for lasting as long as she did, and it might have just been because Valentina thought that she was gonna get lulled to sleep. She thought it was a trap, so she wasn't gonna play into the trap. But Lauren Murphy did last a lot longer than I was expecting her to last, man. What was your big takeaways from this fight?
Well, the big takeaway is that Shevchenko is going Mayweather style, kind of, right? And saying that I'm so good now or I guess I should say John Jones style. I take that back. John Jones style, where you get so good where he says, you know what? Winning isn't enough. I'm going to beat you where you're best at. So what did she do? She Andrajed her, man. She took her down. She smothered her on top. She gave her nothing on the ground. And then she brought her back up to the feet, brought her back down to the ground again, finished her, got her out of there, man. So that was telling because Lauren Murphy, that's where her bread and butter is, man. That's where we expected her to take the fight or attempt to take the fight. The other thing that stood out to me the most, man, on this one is that she was asked in the press conference, Valentina was about, do you think that your opponents are basically mentally broken when they come into the fight? You know what I mean? And she was all like, no. This doesn't happen before the fight. You're not giving me credit. Give me credit. This happens during the fight. This is when they realize that they cannot execute their game plan the way that they wanted to. You know what I mean? Because when they come in there and they say, oh, I'm going to strike with her, I'm going to do this, and they see that, oh, you can't touch me. Well, that's when you start to wilt. And that's what we saw from Lauren Murphy. She couldn't touch her, man. The striking was just too rigid. She was getting pieced up. That combo you're talking about, that it was like a 1-2, but she's a southpaw, right? 1-2, and then that calf kick, man, she landed that shit maybe like 10 times. Like, you know what I mean? She just kept going to the well with it, and there was nothing Murphy could do. So it was just interesting. It was domination, man. And at this point, we're going to have I'll give a preview, folks. Going to have a tough time in the matchmaking for this one, man, because there's no one left for Shevchenko to fight. She's literally cleaned out the entire fucking division, man. So huge win for Valentina Shevchenko, man. Huge win. I cannot overstate that enough. TKO round 4. Beautiful. Love to see it. And I will say this is 6 finishes for Valentina Shevchenko in her last 10 fights, man. So it's even more of a domination right there. It's not like she's just cruising to decisions every fight. So, all right, AJ. Main event, man. And this photo right here, I'm going to ask you, if I would have showed you this photo, let me see. Let me pull it up a little bit. If I would have showed you these photos, these 2 sets of photos here, and then told you after that Volkanovski defeated Brian Ortega in definitive fashion, 50-44, 49-46, 50-45, would you believe me?
No, man. Look at that top one, bro. He's got the hooks in. He's literally under the chin. And the hands of Volkanovski are not fighting the hands of Brian Ortega. Dude, it's crazy. The second one isn't as bad. The left leg isn't completely locked under the right for the triangle, and there's still a little bit of wiggle room that Volkanovski has. But either way, I would have said no.
Yeah, man. And listen, I'll tell you, man, the air left the building. As soon, I'm talking that first top picture right here, folks that are watching. If you're listening, we're talking about Brian Ortega has a deep guillotine on Alexander Volkanovski, and you could see his face. He's like, shit. And he said it in the press conference, man, in the post-fight presser. He was all like, listen, man, I was making weird fucking noises. Like, I don't even know what the hell I was doing. I was just trying to survive. He even said for a split second in his mind that he was all like, oh, fuck, I'm about to lose this belt. So imagine that. That was the one thing that really stood out to me, AJ, because a lot of weird, random thoughts happen when you're in the middle of the competition, man. I could tell you when I'm in the middle of, like, you know what I mean? I've had some people get some pretty deep chokes in on me, and I'm just trying to survive. I'm trying to get that little, just that centimeter of space so I can keep breathing. I'm not going to tap, right? And in your mind, you've got all these weird fucking things going on, man. You're trying to stay poised, but you're like, what the fuck is happening? I can't breathe. My esophagus hurts, you know, all that shit. Do you think that's a little interesting that he, for that moment, says, I'm about to lose my title? Like, he had that clarity of thought while in the heat of the moment like that?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I thought, so in this moment, I saw his legs starting to squirm, his arms starting to squirm, and I was like, holy shit, he's about to go to sleep. Yep. He's not going to tap. He's going to sleep. That's awesome. Like, this is a great win. And like, I was super excited because I picked Ortega to win. But to be honest, man, this speaks to I got to lead a little bit of crow on this one for the pre-show, man, because this speaks to the professionalism of Volkanovski. He was able to keep his mind in the fight, man. Yeah. There's been a lot of times where you're sitting there, you're getting choked down, and you're like, man, I really want some tacos for dinner tonight. That's not what he's thinking. You know, that he's in there. He's like, oh shit, I'm gonna lose my belt. I got to do everything I can to not let that happen. That speaks to the professionalism that he was able to maintain and the mindset that he was able to have, man. And it really showed, man. It was a very impressive. From going from squirming for your life to being able to turn around and land some elbows and bloody your opponent up, credit to Volkanovski on that one, man.
And I'll tell you, folks, 9 times out of 10, when you start leg squirming and you're not fighting the hands, you're done. That's it. Like, the way he got out of this choke is fucking miraculous, folks. Like, I'm telling you, you're not getting out of chokes like that, especially against a dude like Ortega, which, let's give Ortega a little bit of credit, man. He goes from immediately from taking you down to locking up a guillotine within, just like that. Like, his guillotine is tight, man. Like, it's beautiful because that's a skill, man. It's tough to have the coordination to grab your leg, punch you in the face, you know, drop you down, slip the arm in, then get the hooks in and do the whole, it's like a whole sequence of things. And obviously this dude is a very experienced, legitimate black belt. So no surprise, but doesn't, like I said, the surprise here is that Volkanovski was able to survive, man. Because the moment he popped his head out, the fucking building went nuts. Nobody could believe it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And that's part of why they're saying that this is one of the greatest title fights ever, is because the champion was in deep trouble. We're talking about when Dustin Poirier had Khabib in the guillotine, and that people thought that was tight, and that wasn't shit compared to this, bro. This is tight right here. So I'm gonna pull the picture down, and let's just talk about it a little bit, my man. This was a really, really good win, a very definitive win. This is a respect-earning win for the great Alexander Volkanovsky, man. However, I feel like all of the love, or the majority of the love, is being given to Brian Ortega for his valiant effort, for his massive heart, for his Mexican warrior spirit. Listen, man, you can be tough all you want, man, but you can't check a toughness check at the bank. You feel me? Volkanovski, though, I guess both of them, they got the 50K, they got the fight of the night. So Brian Ortega, he's taken care of right there. So they got that taken care of. But man, he didn't get the respect from Volkanovski. He didn't get the respect after the first Holloway win, really, or the second Holloway win, quote unquote win, right? He didn't get any of the respect after that one, man. He's fought legitimate talent. He hasn't really gotten that defining win. Is this the defining win for Alexander Volkanovski that can make you sit back for a second and say, okay, he's the champ, legitimately?
No, it's hard. It's a hard no. But no, it definitely did get me a little bit closer. I'm a blessed fan through and through, my man, on this one. I think they need to have that fight back. And it showed what showed to me on this fight was how good Alexander Volkanovski looked. That just means because he didn't look that good against Max Holloway, man. Max Holloway was putting it to him on the striking. But he did, in this fight, Alexander Volkanovski did do very well against Brian Ortega. And in my book, notched him up a couple notches personally. Like, I have a lot more respect for Volkanovski, but not necessarily the defining, like, all right, this dude is the GOAT of all time. The GOAT, like, he's the champ of champs on this one. It's just hard because he proved he had the mindset of a champ. And that's really what I wanted to focus on this one for Volkanovski. His mind was in the game the whole time. He stayed cool. He stayed composed. And he was able to think things through and be the champion of the match. He was winning every single occasion or every single encounter that they had, whereas he was able to take the soul of his opponent. And sure, he might not have been able to take the heart of Brian Ortega. He might not have been able to crush that heart, but he definitely crushed the mind. And once he slipped out of those couple different submissions, whether it's the guillotine or the triangle, you really started to see Ortega like, damn, like, oh shit. And he started getting wide-eyed, and he started to really kind of fall back on his laurels and we were talking about this before, how Brian Ortega's like the dog, he's the one that's calling the shots. He's doing this. He's not necessarily on time. He's not always listening to his coaches. Well, it showed in the fight where his coach was saying, yo, shoot a blast double, get him to play, get him to advance on you, shoot that blast double. Didn't even attempt it. Literally didn't even look for it. He might have reached down for an ankle pick one time, but that was about it. He didn't shoot a blast double. He didn't even attempt it. So it really showed to me that Volkanovski was in there playing not only, physical warfare, but he got in the mental of Brian Ortega and showed like, you're really going to have to pull out all the stops to really get this done. So in that aspect, Volkanovski did earn a lot of credit in my book, and it went a long way to see that. Now I'm excited to see how he handles the whole Holloway fight, bro. If it goes down, we'll see. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah,
but
we'll
what do you think, Nick?
We'll definitely see about that, man. I got a lot of respect for Volkanovski, man. I thought this was a very gritty win against a very game opponent who is skilled in multiple spaces, right? I mean, he was able to get the takedowns on Holloway, and he didn't have to worry about anything. For this one, man, it's like, why are you going to the ground with Ortega? And it's interesting that you noted that the corner advice from Ortega, because obviously, like, being in the crowd, you hear none of that. I didn't know what the hell was going on, so I didn't even know that had happened. And to add on to that, in the third round of this fight, I was talking to you about this in the pre-show. In the third round of the fight, man, when Ortega, it took him a little bit to get back up on the stool, right? We thought it might have been over, like the doctors were checking on him, right? Because there is no commentary, it's all loud. You got the fans going crazy. It's not like this is an Apex fight or anything like that, man. I kid you not, man. Where I was sitting up there in the second section up top, right? We thought Ortega was dead, legitimately, man. Like you were saying on TV, you could see him breathing a little bit, so it's that. But from our vantage point, I was like, this man just fucking died. Like I just witnessed a murder right now, legitimately. And then he comes up like a zombie and just gets back on the stool. Man, everyone got on their feet, went crazy. We were all screaming every time Herb Dean and the doctors were checking on Ortega. We were all screaming, "Let him fight! Fuck it! Come on, let's go, bro! Let him rock! Come on, let's scrap!" And it's interesting hearing Volkanovski's perspective because he says that from Brian Ortega, because he's right there in the cage, he could hear it. he was saying that when the doctors were checking on him and they were asking him questions, he answered every question wrong. And they basically said, like, all right, we're just going to wait till you answer a question right, and then we're going to let you fight again. You know what I'm saying? But they were asking him to look this way, and he would look the complete opposite way. You feel me? Like, this dude clearly was concussed, clearly was probably knocked out on his feet, but goes to show that he had that Calvin Kattar spirit, man, where he just kept coming. Same thing Max Holloway said about Kattar is what Volkanovski said about Ortega. He says, I thought I had broken the man. After the third round, I thought he was broken. I come out there, I try to go finish him, and what does he do? He just comes back and starts cracking me back. Like, where is this dude coming from? Indomitable spirit, indomitable heart of Brian Ortega. Shout out T-City. It's a little setback, once again, man, but you only got 2 losses on your entire career, and they're both to champions. They were both in championship fights, man. So in my book, you don't count those as losses. Those are lessons. Obviously, losses on your record, but in your mental, that's just a lesson, man. You were at the pinnacle, so... Huge win by Volkanovski, arguably one of the greatest title fights in featherweight history, arguably, right? And the judges' scorecards doesn't really show that, but in terms of the action, the comebacks, the adversity, the ebb and flow, crazy fucking shit, man. So shout out to that, folks. Drop that one down. Drop a like, subscribe if you like the content, if you like to break down the analysis. Drop a like if you took some advice from our picks, man. Both of us was over 500, you know what I'm saying? So you probably made you some money, and if you didn't, then you clearly weren't watching us, you know what I'm saying? So, all right, AJ, man, we got a little bit of matchmaking that we need to take care of, and right before we do that, actually, though, AJ, I did want to just point out, because we overlooked it, a couple highlights from the prelims, very, very quickly. Merab Dvalishvili, the machine, is a fucking monster, bro. I just have to say that, man. He put it on Marlon Moraes after getting hurt early. 7th win in a row. 2nd win in a row against a ranked opponent. Just tell me really quickly in like a sentence or two how excited you are for the future of Merab Dvalishvili.
It looks good, man. The future of Merab Dvalishvili, it looks really, really good, especially because where everybody else falters, he really starts to shine through. That machine, the dude's a machine. Absolute killer. And when he was hurt by Marlon Moraes, he stayed cool. He stayed composed. He almost got out, but then he stayed in it, man. That's what we love to see.
Exactly. He's a fucking madman. That's what I really love about him. Dan Hooker gets back in the win column against Nasrat Haqparast. Both of these dudes had to overcome a lot of adversity just to make it to the fight. But I will just say this, man. Dan Hooker, we was texting back and forth. That looks like a fighter who has grown, who is not just going to be blood and guts, who is going to actually use mixed martial arts, not just be a kickboxer and a blood and guts guy, man. How much growth did you see from Dan Hooker in that fight?
Man, that Dan Hooker, brother. It was crazy. The stuff he had to deal with, from visa issues to late night flights to late weight cuts, media day obligations, and the fight itself. Yeah. And then to have the wherewithal to cut a promo to our boy Benny. Bro, I loved seeing Dan Hooker in that fight, man. It was he grew a lot. It was impressive to see. I'm excited for Dan Hooker's next, future coming up.
Absolutely. And listen, the man who is now 4-0 in the UFC, Chris Daukaus, gets the KO win over Shamil Abdurakhimov, takes his spot in the rankings. We've been shouting out the Daukaus bros since they've been in the UFC, basically, man. You specifically, though, have been saying Chris Daukaus. I've been the Tom Aspinall guy. You've been the Chris Daukaus guy, man. And listen, these got to meet up eventually. I was surprised to see. They kind of ducked him a little bit, didn't call him out, but then again, he's got his sights set a little higher than Tom Aspinall, I personally believe. So just tell me whether you agree with this or not, and then give me a quick take. Tom Aspinall and Chris Daukaus will eventually meet, whether it is for the gold or on the path to gold for the heavyweight division. Yes or no, and then give me your take.
Yes, 100%. Yes, easy yes on that one. Those boys, I hope they don't meet too early. That's the caveat to that. I hope they don't meet here within the next fight or two. I hope it's for gold. I hope, because they're gonna be crazy, man. And those dudes are gonna have a very long term in the UFC, and I'm excited to watch it.
There we go. Last thing that I got here, man, a big one is it's Jalen Turner, the Tarantula, man. He got a very, very big win over Uros Medic, man. And the doctor is a legit fucking problem, man. And he got put out really, really quickly against the Tarantula and those long-ass arms with the submission, man. I just want to say, Turner, man, he's showing this is his second submission victory in a row. He can knock you out. He could submit you. The man is a problem. I think he's 6'3", fighting at 155 pounds, man. He's got a huge frame. This is one of the dudes that I think a lot of people are still sleeping on, but they shouldn't. They should be woken up, right?
Oh, yeah, man. No, very much. A lot of people are sleeping on the Tarantula. And like you said, a big frame, strikes hard, hits hard, can tap you out. This dude has a lot to offer, and in a very stacked division. So we're going to see a lot of really good fights coming up in the future for him.
Oh, absolutely. So, folks, just to cap it off, man, 2 performance bonuses of the night. Merab Dvalishvili and Chris Daukaus. Fight of the night was Volkanovski versus Ortega. Very chalky week, man. All 5 of the main card fighters who were favorites won their fight. There was only 2 upsets on the entire card, and that was for Jalen Turner, believe it or not, and for Jonathan Pierce, which JSP, man, dude's a savage grappler. I picked for Morales in that fight, so I was wrong on that one. But overall, I will say, let me count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of our about 14 fights ended via stoppage, man. So it was a very, very fun card. If you paid for the pay-per-view, you definitely got your money's worth. Prelims for free. This is why I tell you people, watch the prelims. And the last note before we move on, because I know we got to run out of time here, AJ, is that I'm not gonna lie to you, AJ. The building didn't really pack in until like the co-main event. It's fucking crazy. I was just like, y'all missed out on all of these incredible prelim fights. Like, cause I got there early, man. I'm there from fight 1 to the end of the night. And I'll tell you, man, you saw that knockout for Semmelsberger. There was like nobody in the crowd. You know what I mean? It was just a couple of us clapping like, oh yeah, golf clap and all that. You know what I'm saying? So watch the prelims, folks. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how many times we have to say that here, but watch the prelims and drop a like and subscribe while you're at it. All right, AJ, let's hit some matchmaking. This is going to be really quick, man. I think we got to go through these very, very quickly just because it's very chalky. A lot of champions, a lot of high-rated fighters. So let's start off with Volkanovski, man. You get the winner of Holloway versus Jair Rodriguez. That's really the only option at this point, right?
Yep. That's what I got too.
But let me just say this, man. If Jair Rodriguez miraculously gets a victory in this fight, does he even deserve a title shot?
Not really. I put it down when I was writing it.
Mm-hmm.
I put Volkanovski versus Holloway, and I was like, oh shit, Holloway's gonna fight Yair. Well, shit. I mean, I guess kind of because you beat Holloway, but I don't think so. I think it has to be Volkanovski versus Holloway, and if Yair gets the dub, then Yair fights somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I will agree with you a little bit, man. I don't think Alexander Volkanovski will ever truly have the respect that he deserves in the division if he doesn't get a win over Holloway definitively, where the fans can just be like, all right, man, there was no nonsense, no iffy judging, you got the dub. There's no way he can truly earn that respect. So easy one right there. Hard one right here, AJ. Valentina Shevchenko, man. Like I said, 6 title defenses. She's cleaned out basically the entire division. And they're talking about something that they only talk about when 2 fighters have cleaned out their respective divisions and they want to fight. They want an Amanda Nunes trilogy, right? So let's not forget. Valentina Shevchenko in 2016 and 2017 lost fights to Amanda Nunes. However, both of the fights took place at bantamweight. Nunes is too big to make 125. So it's a little unfair for Valentina because she's constantly being forced to move up, fight the stronger, bigger fighter. Does the Nunes trilogy, do you think that's actually something that can happen, that will take place? Or do you think there's anybody else in the top 15 that can fight Valentina?
I think there's really no other option out there that like excites people. There's a lot of other options that make sense. You can give feed Andrade to the dogs again, and Chukagan to the dogs again. You can let Valentina just keep bullying people, but it's not going to excite anybody. It's not going to have the draw of the crowd. Where I think if you do the champ, it at least draws in the crowd. And although it sucks, you're going to have to fight up, but that means you're the underdog. That's good to feel being the underdog for once, man. So I'm excited for that one. I think it needs to happen. I really don't see any other legitimate option for her other than that.
It's funny because I was looking through literally the top 15. I was like, is there anybody here? And there's only one fighter who has got something reasonable that we can like maybe, and you still can't because it wouldn't even make sense at all. But I say Alexa Grasso is like the only one who's got like strung together like 2 wins in a row. You feel me? Because everybody else is spotty. It's win, loss, loss, win, something like that, man. So it just goes to show how dominant Shevchenko is, man. And I would like to see a Nunes trilogy. However, listen, man, if you lose 3 times to Nunes, where do you go from there? It's just I don't even know where you go. So, all right, man. Robbie Lawler. So I think that he's going to stay at welterweight. That's the move. He only took this fight at middleweight because Diaz requested it at the last minute. But he's number 36 in the welterweight division, man. And I'm going to be honest, folks. I got nothing for this one, man. He's only going to fight top guys or just big name things to kind of plug into a pay-per-view to kind of build it up even more. Like, who would imagine the Nick Diaz versus Lawler fight again, after his last fight against Neil Magny, which, you know what I'm saying? So he's fought basically all just top name guys, high-ranked guys, but I don't see him fighting top 15 guys. I don't see him fighting super unranked guys. Where do we go for Robbie Lawler here? The man is 39 years old.
Yeah, it's a hard one because I feel like it's either all in or all out for Robbie Lawler on this one. Either you're fighting, like you said, pay-per-view dogs, or you're fighting the new dudes. This one was extremely hard for me to choose. I went with Alessio Di Chirico just because but I'm not really excited by it. Yeah, I think it'd be a good fight, but I don't think there's like reason behind it, if that makes sense,
Absolutely, and that's where it goes to show where it's just like the matchmaking gets really hard because you got to have a purpose in the matchmaking, and if we're just matching guys together just for the fuck of it, then you're wasting out on your talent because Robbie Lawler is a draw. Let's not forget, Nick Diaz wasn't the only reason people showed up for that fight. Robbie Lawler is a draw, former champion, all that stuff, man. It was a privilege and an honor to watch the man fight, man. You know what I mean? Especially at damn near 40 years old, putting on a show like he did, incredible. But yeah, we basically don't really got much for that one, and that's just a weird one to Robbie Lawler. But for Curtis Blaydes, we only got 3 options here, AJ. Well, more, but 3 options that make sense: Ngannou, Jones, or Stipe, or Cyril Gane. What do you think?
I think Stipe, man. I think we give Stipe. Let's see how the wrestling handles out. Stipe hasn't fought in a while. Blaydes, that's his kind of bread and butter.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. It's weird for that division being that odd man out for Blaydes, and then it's even weirder that none of the other ones want to fight each other. So it's like, where do you go?
Exactly, and let's not forget Stipe is the most disrespected legendary heavyweight champion of all time in the UFC, man. Like, how does the man not get his rematch? You know what I'm saying? He had the trilogy with DC. Loses to Ngannou after he beat him once, so we're just going to leave it at that, just 1-1, and we're not going to solve this. Like, we got to figure this out eventually, right? So I do think that if they're not going to let him fight for the title, fight Curtis Blaydes. I think he should be able to get past that one. Maybe not easily, but I think he'd be able to get past that one and see where we go from there. Because Curtis Blaydes, listen, he's in the top 4, rightfully so, and I don't think that the man is going to want to fight down. I don't think it makes sense for him to fight down at this point. His only losses are to Derick Lewis and Francis Ngannou, so come on, give that man some respect. All right, lastly, man, Jessica Andrade, we already talked about it earlier. If she does get the winner of Namajunas versus Weili Zhang, she will be moving down to 115 pounds. I asked you earlier, where's her future? You say probably 115 pounds. But I want to do a hypothetical here, AJ. What happens if she stays at 125? She's number 1 in the division. Who does she fight next? She can't fight Shevchenko next. Like, you just got your ass whooped by her. You can't fight her next. But who would she fight potentially?
I think she either goes rematch with Chikagian or Jennifer Maia. We saw the Maia wrestling of Shevchenko work out pretty well, or at least better than a lot of us thought it was going to. So if we have, because Andraj can wrestle. Andraj is really, really good at that aspect, but she also carries power. So if we're able to see that against Maia, I think it'd be a good, at least mix them up for who might fight Shevchenko next. Yeah. That's a hard one.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'd like to see her against number 9 ranked Alexa Grasso personally, man. She's a good boxer. She's working on her wrestling, and she has a fight coming up actually with Joanne Calderwood taking place on, I believe, November 20th. So it was kind of like the winner of that one, but I just think Grasso would be an interesting challenge because she's rangy. She's a boxer, man. She got really good hands, and we know she can put the pressure on you, and that's kind of Andrade's kryptonite right there is when people put the pressure on her as opposed to her putting the pressure on them. So interesting. Like I said, man, all of the matchmaking on this one is very chalky. It's kind of not too much flexibility, but that's the matchmaking, folks. So if you like it, once again, drop a like, subscribe, rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You dig. Before we get out of here, AJ, I just got a couple of things on the newswire that I want to take care of. And this first thing is just a little embarrassing. We already talked about Usyk getting the big win over Joshua Anthony. That was huge. But this first thing is very embarrassing right here. So just bear with me. I just want to know what you think about this. So you know who Dylan Dennis is, right?
Oh, man. Yeah. I'm glad you're bringing this up. Yep.
Yeah. So Dylan Dennis, BJJ black belt, longtime friend and training partner of Conor McGregor, right? Dude who's known for stunts and spectacles and the whole 9. He recently tapped when put in a rear naked choke by a bar security guard at the Beachcomber bar after trying to force his way in, though he didn't have ID. The security guard was like, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. I just had to restrain the man, put him in the rear naked choke. And the man actually tapped. You're a black belt, man. You're over here talking about how you're going to knock the fuck out of everybody. You're going to beat all of these elite fighters. And then you get choked out by bar security. You know what I mean? Because you can't even get access to the bar. You try to big up and be like, oh, don't you know who I am? First off, fuck people who do shit like that, first and foremost, right? But second off, how are you a black belt and you got maybe he snuck up on him? I don't know. I saw a couple frames of the video, but embarrassing, man. What do you take away from this?
Embarrassing, Derick. This happened to me one time where I got into a little street altercation, put the rear naked choke on a dude and he starts tapping out. I'm like, bro, this is we in the street, homie. I'm putting you to sleep, dog. Yeah. I'm letting you tap. we're not on a mat. Like, what are you talking about? And he was mad. He's like, I'm tapping. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm choking you, homie. This is what's going down right now. And it's funny to me that Dillon Danis thought the same thing. Like, oh, if I tap, this guy's gonna let me go. Like, nah, bro. This is real life. You going to sleep right now, or you're gonna, comply with what I'm having you do.
Exactly.
Pretty embarrassing. Embarrassing. Well, I got to ask you, Derick, I'm glad you brought this up, because what's more embarrassing, thinking you can tap and being a black belt and getting tapped out by a security guard and thinking that it's going to all work out that way, or like Uncle Chael says, going from the Hall of Fame to the Hall of Shame in 10 minutes like John Jones did?
Listen, man, I'm going to be honest with you, because – and that was fucking terrible, because I was at that Hall of Fame ceremony, man, and I saw John. He was there. I was like, I'm watching him. He's praising his wife. A couple hours later, arrested for domestic violence. Like, oh, fucking here we go. Fucking John Jones, right? I will have to say, because there's precedent, because this is basically what Jones is known for, it's not as embarrassing as Dillon Danis, who is just, all he is social media. It really feels like, man. He just talks shit. When he got into a BJJ match with Jake Shields, he got it put on him by Jake Shields, and he's still trying to contest all that. And then listen, man, you're trying to compete with Jake Shields, you got tapped out by a bar security guard. Let's just call it at that, man. You deserve to get knocked down. You got to go back down to a brown belt for that. You know what I'm saying? Remove that black belt from the equation, man. But just embarrassing overall, man. I only brought it up just because that's a slice of humble pie that you get for talking shit, man, and just being an asshole. Like, don't do shit like that, and shit like this won't happen. So, the last thing that I got for you before we get out of here, AJ, is that Callum Smith, a boxer, right? I don't got the weight on me at hand right here, but I just want to bring this up because I want to talk about the contrast between boxing and MMA. I already told you before, there's a lot of more deaths that happen in boxing much more frequently than you will ever see in mixed martial arts. But Callum Smith knocked out Lenin Castillo, and during this knockout, man, Lenin Castillo was convulsing on the canvas after he got knocked down, right? I'm talking leg shaking, just like, all that. And no disrespect, man, because that's a very serious thing that we're talking about. But it's like, that's scary. That's very scary. And I wanted to ask you there, can you think of, like, knockouts like that in MMA? I feel like we don't get those very often, because when you get flatlined, you get flatlined. There is no convulsing. There's none of that. You're flatlined. You're asleep. You're done. You feel me? Why? And also, so have you seen moments like that? Do you remember off the top of your head? And also, why do you think these things are more frequent in boxing than they are in mixed martial arts?
The only time that in memory that comes when somebody got hit in the head and started convulsing is my homie Johnny Lale. We were playing softball. It wasn't even in a mixed martial arts thing. He just, there was a collision at first base. One shoulder ran into his head, and just something weird happened. He started having convulsions and seizing. It was very scary. It's a very scary thing, man, even for the boxer, man. I hope everything's okay. But I think it happens more because of repetitive strikes to the head. You're messing with your brainstem. You're constantly, messing with the neck, and things are rocking around, and your brain's sitting in its cranium. Your skull's right there. It's got protection, but there's also fluid around, so it's able to move a little bit, and it's constantly just bouncing back and forth off that heart, your hard skull.
Yeah,
it's not good for you. It's not good for you, and I would imagine that's why. I'm also not a scientist, so I don't know damn shit about that. but I would imagine it's from repetitive blows to the head. And with boxing, or at least with mixed martial arts, there's a lot more options of which you can end the fight and places you can strike. Whereas with boxing, you're either going to the breadbasket or you're going to the button. So it's it's hard to see.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. And this is, once again, man, why I just keep saying this is not a comparison thing. This is not me saying one thing is better than the other, but I just have to say the common misconception that MMA is such a human cockfighting sport and that it's so dangerous and that you can never allow anyone to compete because they're going to hurt themselves. It's like, man, but you let people box all the time, right? I love boxing. Don't get me wrong. I came up, that was the first discipline I've ever learned was boxing. And, just because I love it doesn't mean that I can't critique it and say, like, listen, man, this is happening very, very frequently, and we need to just address it. Let's just be fair here. So in all fairness, man, boxing comes with its own set of issues right there, just like MMA and every other sport. Jiu-jitsu, man, everyone getting their kneecaps fucking torn off and all that shit, man. Come on, all these sports, basketball, you see in football every single week someone tearing an ACL or fucking tearing an Achilles or something like that, man. But all right, folks, that's the news wire that we got this week. It was a very, very interesting night of fights, man. Interesting weekend full of fights here, man. man. And I just have to say, once again, just a big reminder, if you got the opportunity, man, come out to Vegas, come catch a fight, you know what I mean, wherever they're doing fights, because you know they're trying to open it up more now, kind of get back to normalcy. Go to a fight, man. It is so worth it. It is, yeah, it's a little pricey, but so is anything else, right? Go to a football game, all that shit. It's better in person, man. So AJ, you see the poster in the corner. Next fight that we got is Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker, man. This is gonna be a fucking banger, AJ. I think this is gonna be a light heavyweight contest as well too, so Santos will be moving up a little bit. And October 2nd, folks, so listen, just 1 week away, man. You know where you can catch us on Friday for the pre-show. Thank you for tuning in. Drop a like, subscribe. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more times until you keep doing it, you dig? Subscribe, all the whole nine. AJ, it's been a pleasure and an honor, brother, and we will do it again on Friday for the preview show. Until next time, folks, peace.